This is the Recovery Lab.
Here we dive deep into the struggles, victories, and hope that stem from recovery.
No shame, no judgment, just truth, grace, and inspiration.
Let's walk this road together.
All right. Welcome back. We're at episode 103. It's a great episode. I'm David Sugg.
I'm Daniel Anderson.
And I'm Jordan Butler.
We are the Recovery Lab. We're here this week with special guest Vicki DeMoney, Executive Director of Crossroads Ministries. I'm super excited to have you here. Heard a lot about you, seen a lot of your great work because you've been around. You've been doing it a long, long time, and just excited to pick your brain on how you get out there and change lives and face the headwinds of just the tough stuff that you're dealing with every day. I know it's incredibly difficult, so I'm really looking forward to hearing you share your experience, strength, and hope with us. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
A lot of people can do good work for a day or two, and some people can do it for a year. But to do it for as long as you've been doing, over a decade, was it 17 years now? Mm-hmm. That's not very many people. And to really change lives at scale, to really be able to do the work that you're doing, that's what it requires. Somebody sticking to it for a long period of time. How is it? What fuels that? What's going on? How are you able to do what you do for so long? Because it's a lot of work.
Right. Well, I just have to tell you, it's been God and the Holy Spirit who strengthens me when I go back to that original call and I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it just solidifies that you just have to keep in the battle to win the war. And I've always known that if I can help change one life, I can change generations. And I've seen that so true because as our women become healthier, their children become healthier, and their children's children become healthier. So being in 17 years now, I've seen 3 generations be affected by a changed life.
That's amazing.
Miss Vicki, if I may, so you arrived a little bit earlier this morning, and you and I had an opportunity to talk, and you shared a story that it really, really captivated me. And I was not expecting that. I was kind of expecting I wasn't going to engage a whole lot today just because, there's a lot going on this side, and I really want to be able to focus and make everybody sound and look good. But God did something else this morning. So if you would tell us about what exactly happened before you started. Tell me that story. Tell all of us that story of the doubts you had at the beginning and what that whole beginning looked like, please.
Right. Okay. So I'd been volunteering inside the prison through Crossroads Ministry, and I was so happy there. I could go in, minister to the ladies that I'd met and fallen in love with, and just felt that was my place. But more and more, I began to realize what a great need they had for housing, for somewhere to go. Not just somewhere, but a safe place to go. And there was this burning fire in me that began to start. I wanted to be that place. I wanted to get this house, and I wanted to become that. And I was setting the woods on fire, planning and doing, and then all of a sudden, I got real cold feet. I thought, who am I to be doing this? How am I going to feed women 3 meals a day? Because I didn't have any financial backing at all at that time. And then I got deciding, okay, you've got in here and got ahead of yourself, because I can get excited about something and just run with it, So
We share that. I think everyone in this room has been guilty of said thing.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to stand still a minute because I had to know that God was behind this, because I knew I would not be able to do what needed to be done in my own strength. So me and God just kind of had a conversation inside my spirit, and I didn't share it with anybody else. And I labored for 2 or 3 weeks, and a friend of mine invited me to a Bible study. And the lady's name was Betty Love, and she prophesied for people. Well, my friend kept nudging me to go down and be prayed for, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that today. I just wasn't feeling real spiritual that day. I was kind of down in the dumps, but she finally convinced me, and I got up and I went to walk down. About halfway down, the lady looked up at me and she said, God just told me to tell you that this is not about you, but it's all about him. And that was the exact prayer I had asked God to share with me, because I had to know this wasn't about me. And I surrendered that day. And that one moment in time has kept me steady in the fight, because nowhere in the scriptures do you see that anything was done without conflict and controversy and hardships. So you can't quit. I cannot quit. There's many days I'd like to quit, but you can't until God removes his hand and he puts somebody else in your place. And it's too important to lose the battle. I will fight to the very end to see a changed life. I didn't share this, but I'll share it. When I was 35, my mom was 55, and she had been through lots and lots of hard battle. I grew up with a very abusive father, and she just had lost her way. And so at 55, she committed suicide.
Sorry.
And I was 35 and had kids, and my life was pretty cool. And I've been married 53 years, so a good man. And but that really traumatized me. I'd had a hysterectomy on Monday, and my mother shot herself on Wednesday. And I was the only child, so I had to go Friday and do the services, you know. And I spent some time in depression. I quit my job at the church and just finally in my soul decided I was being mad at the wrong people. And I realized that the devil had stole my mom's life for a lack of knowledge of healing. And I got up from that chair. I kind of felt like Rocky, you know. And I decided that day in 1986 that I would do anything in my power to help not another woman not hear the voice of God for healing. And I think it was that commitment right there that led me several years later, and everything I'd done since then led me to that point to start this. Since I've started Crossroad, I think the McCoy house was here at that time too. But there weren't many houses, many sober living houses. Yeah. Now they're coming around, you know. There's more, but it's just determination of I'm not going to lose this war if I can help it.
Touching story. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Wow. I got a little wet-eyed. Yeah, so I don't know, to our audience, Jordan Butler, Executive Director of McCoy House, another pretty prominent, long-lasting sober living home for women. I thought it'd be a great match to have you come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
I'm so
stopping
happy
by.
to be here. Thanks for having me. And that is a really powerful story.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks for sharing it.
I remember when I started Crossroads, somebody that was looking for a sober living house, and I didn't know anything, saw your house.
Mm.
And I was like, ooh, I can't even stand in the same water with that house. That is a nice house, you know. The little house we rented, I knew the guy that owned it. And when I called him about renting it, I said, told him what I wanted to do and everything. He said, well, I'd really like to do that with you, but I've got it rented out. So there were like 15 men living in that house that were working. They'd been there a long time. And I said, well, I believe God showed me that house. I had a vision when I drove by the house. I saw women going in and women coming out. Mm-hmm. And God said, there's your house. Mm-hmm. So when I called him, he told me it was rented. And I said, well, if it comes open, I need that house. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks later, he went to collect the rent, and they had all moved. Every one of them. And God just opened the door and gave it. I still have that house. Yeah. And you can imagine how it looked after 15 workmen living in it. And that's when I saw your house, and I was cleaning up this old nasty house. But that you were an inspiration. McCoy House was an inspiration of excellence that I wanted to raise our house to.
Well, thank you for
So,
saying that.
yeah, thank you for y'all being who y'all are. So it's good. It takes everybody to help women, you know, to be safe.
Yeah.
You guys do a great job.
Well, thank you for that.
So, yeah.
Tell us that story also about what happened not New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve of that first year. What happened that night? Walk us
So,
through that, please.
We'd had an open house. We'd cleaned the house, painted the house, started collecting stuff from the community, you know, just old couches or whatever people wanted to bring. I was just humble and said thank you, you know. But I did ask God, please give us new beds. I don't know if y'all have ever seen what people sleep on inside the prison.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. A rack, you know,
Metal.
foam if you're lucky, you know. And somebody said, well, you ought to put twin beds in here, bunk beds in here so you can get more ladies in. And I said, as long as there's breath in my body, there will never be a bunk bed in this house. So I asked God, please give me new beds. That's all I ask you for. I'll take anything else you got. And we had an open house about the 1st of Christmas, December, and different people had come by. And a lady I knew back from daycare days when I was director at First Baptist Ridgeland, I'd had her kid in daycare, and I didn't realize that they had a connection with a furniture store. So it was Christmas Eve, and I was at the house doing some things before I went home, and a big truck drove up. I thought, what in the world? And they knocked on my door, and they unloaded 8 brand new beds, still in the plastic. And I just sat on the floor and cried.
Yeah.
Not only because I got new beds, but because I knew God was still involved. And there's been so many things like that.
I'm sure there has.
You know, just little things. Like we used to go to, and we still do, sometimes go to Gleaners and get food to help me feed all these women. And a girl came in, it was her birthday. And I think her name was Brittany or something, but we went and they got a cake, and we got back with the cake, and it was her birthday. And somebody had left a birthday cake, and it said, "Happy birthday, Brittany."
Wow.
You know, you just cannot make up all the little things that God does that women see that he's going to meet their needs. So I'm always inspired by the little things.
I've got another question. I'm sorry, I'm on fire. Something I don't know. Like again, I was planning on just being quiet and doing my job, but so what were some of the challenges in that first year? The speed bumps, oh my gosh, what is going on right here? Like, what were some of those things that happened, and how did you get through those or get around those, or what people came into place? What people did God place in to help you get through those things? What was that first year like?
So many volunteers came alongside and began to help me with teaching classes and providing clothes for the girls. It was 2013 we started our thrift store in Canton. But until then...
And where is that located?
It's at 115 West P Street, right on the square.
Yeah.
And so that was another God thing. But until then, I just had to depend on people bringing things. And we had this one big closet that no matter how hard I tried, there was no keeping that closet organized. And when women come to Crossroads, I tell everybody we start with a toothbrush because they have nothing. They are literally have destroyed, a lot of them destroyed their life through their choices. But you got to start because they don't have anything. So we start with a toothbrush, hygiene products, shoes, clothes, a purse, a billfold, something to put in the billfold. You know, we start with trying to restore their documents, their birth certificates, their driver's license, their social security card. We try to put them together. Then their medical needs. Women really suffer in prison from lack of medical attention. There's no pap smears. There's no mammograms. Dental is huge. You know, when you're a meth addict, you lose
Right.
all your teeth. And my girls come in sometimes with abscesses all over their mouth. That's, you know, that is extremely hard to navigate through healthcare. I have women come in with tumors on their legs, with people needing surgery. I had a lady a few years ago come in with a big lesion under her tongue that they had not kept her oncology appointment, and it was a very fast-growing cancer. And we hurried up and got her an appointment with who she was supposed to see. Well, it turned out it ran in her family. I got the appointment. I got her in the hospital, and I shifted her to her family's care. She ended up having to have major surgery, remove most of her tongue down her throat. The cancer had spread. So health is huge. Provision is huge. Volunteers to show up and teach classes and mentors and just wrapping your head around everything that they need on top of dealing with all their emotions from being institutionalized. Being institutionalized is a real thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I like to tell the story. If you wake up and your tennis shoes aren't under the bed, your first thought is, where'd I leave my tennis shoes? Their first thought is, who stole my tennis shoes?
Right.
So there's a mindset there that we have to overcome. They're very paranoid. Their nerves are shot. They're gun shy. They don't trust anybody. They're manipulators. You know, they've gotten through life the best way they can. So just kind of unwrapping all of that to create a new way of thinking, a new way of looking at themselves, and a new way of looking at others is a huge challenge. You know, sometimes I would go in those early days and they'd all be mad at each other, and she's looking at me and she gave me the side eye, or, you know, it's just something. And just teaching them how to get along, because if you learn to get along at the house, then you're going to be okay with family. Trying to get people back together as a family. Sometimes family's not safe. You know, I've had girls come in and tell me the person that showed them how to use a needle was their mama. A lot of generational drug use right now. A lot of it. And that's very hard to break when the people you have to be away from is your mama, your daddy, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your husband. You know, so it's just breaking all this generational stuff and mindset to create a clean person, a fresh person. You know, y'all had Julie and Georgia both up here. You know, Julie, when I got her, I knew God had placed her with me, no doubt in my mind. She had run from drug court, so they had put her back in jail for 30 days, even though I tried to talk them out of it. But when I went to Rankin County and picked her up, I could see her through the glass. She had blonde hair back then. It was up on top of her head, and I thought, ooh, this girl gonna be trouble. And so I got her in my car, and I looked at her and I said, are you gonna be trouble? She said, no, ma'am, Miss Vicki, I got to get my life straight. Yeah. And she never looked back. And it's the Julies and the Georgias that make everything worthwhile for me. And because not everybody's like that.
Yeah, you mentioned in your open story about that moment where you surrendered to like what you're calling, and you kind of felt a moment where you're like, okay, this is it. And then what you're describing about Georgia, you kind of see her surrendering. Can you kind of spot them come through the door? Some of them who have let go, and some of them are still holding on to that self-will. Sometimes,
yeah.
Can you work with that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to work. You know, I decided a long time ago that my fulfillment could not be based on other people's actions. I had to know in my heart that I'm good because I've done what God's told me to do. If you choose not to take the help I'm giving you, then that's on you. Does it make me feel bad? Does it make me feel bad when a girl that I have graduates her 4 months, her 2 boys who hadn't had anything to do with her come and pick her up and are so excited to see her, take her home because she's a changed woman. And 3 weeks later, her son finds her at home with a needle hanging out of her heart, overdosed, and calls me and said, "Did my mama really mean it when she said she loved me?" That's tough, y'all. And I told him, absolutely, your mama meant it. She did love you, but she was fighting something that was stronger than what she was. Yes, it's so that is so painful. So I hang on to the Georges and the Julies that make it. Addiction, and I know this is kind of what y'all's platform is about. It is a dragon. It's evil, and I've been through it with my own kids. And so you want to look at somebody and say, well, don't you love me enough to quit using drugs? But it's just not about that.
Right.
It's about learning how to not use drugs. So at Crossroads, one thing that I kind of felt like, I don't know how y'all feel about this, but rehab centers either are faith-based and they won't let you talk about your drugs and stuff, or you get, for lack of a better word, a worldly rehab that won't let you talk about faith, or it's a higher power or something like that, no offense to anybody. But I felt like that world had to mingle. We had to talk about our faith, but we have to talk about these drugs. We have to talk about how these drugs affect your body, your mind, your spirit, how long it's going to take you to unwrap your head around this. And then we have to talk about our Savior, our Lord, the Holy Spirit, who can give us strength when nothing else can. To talk about why you're using, what's going on, what's the drama in your life, why do you believe you can't do this? So we do a lot of conversation about real life, talking about the actions we had and how we can let go of that and come back. I have girls that call me that have relapsed. I take people back 2 or 3 times. If I really feel like they're serious, they just relapsed. Because that's just going to happen with addiction. You're going to, and unfortunately, with fentanyl the way it is, in a relapse, people die.
Yeah.
People are dying. And I've had a lot of that, and it's very painful. So it's a fight.
If I may, I have not a quick question for you. As you're describing, what are wraparound services is that, and we talk about this in the world of recovery, that my drug of choice is but a symptom of what's really going on. And so I can get chemically sober, but I got to deal with all the other stuff to live a life of recovery. In my past work, we worked with people who needed jobs, young people.
Right.
And the issue wasn't just, here's the job. It's what are all the reasons why you can't get a job? And there are lots of them. And you're describing something also that combines both of those. It's not just that people need a place to stay, but they also need recovery. And anyway, and so all of that, I know that work is immense and it takes a host of people.
Village.
I'm curious to know how many people are involved. I know you've got volunteers, but what does that support look like through Crossroads? Because it must be immense, a team that you've had to pull together. Or maybe it's not. I don't know.
Well, it is, because when I first started Crossroads, I never will forget, I really fell in love with a girl at a Kairos table. She told me she hadn't had a Coke in like 3-4 years. And, the theme in the prison and the theme at Crossroads, we do for one, we do for everybody. So I wanted so bad to buy my friend a Coke that I bought 58 Cokes so I could give her one. And I was packing all the Cokes up in the grocery store. And a man said, boy, you buying a lot of Cokes? And I told him the story. He said, oh, like prison people didn't deserve anything. And I thought, I got a lot to overcome. And so I started in the churches. I started going to churches. I started taking my girls to churches that I knew they would be safe in. And little by little by little, as the community began to know the women, their mindset began to change about who's incarcerated. Because I knew when God called me to do it, I was not going to Hinds County. I was not going to put this in downtown Jackson. I give kudos to anybody that runs a recovery program in the downtown area. You're already fighting a fight. You know, somebody said I'm the best kept secret in Madison County. I'd like to think that's true, but because our house is kind of in the middle of everything, but it's not, you know. But there's such a mindset because you've been in prison. And our businesses have got to get over themselves, you know, and hire people. And not just because you know somebody that knows somebody, but my girls getting to know people in church has afforded them opportunities, you know, to get jobs. Does it always work out? No. But neither does just hiring somebody that hadn't been in prison always work out.
That's right.
But they're always quick to say, you know, because they've been in prison. I try to tell people, if you hire one of my girls from prison, you'll have the best employee you got because they just can't stop and go get a job somewhere else. You know, so the discrimination is huge. But I try to pour a lot into my girls, and I don't really recommend everybody. Like if I think somebody's not ready for it, I'm not going to put them out there. I'm not going to recommend them. I think that's just the way it is for anything. So you can't get an apartment with a felony, except for the ones in the hood. You can't get a car loan with a felony. You can't get most jobs with felonies. I've seen girls go to Walmart and the superintendent, they would be so excited because the supervisor wanted to hire them. Oh, Miss Vicki is good. I had a good interview. They'd go 2 or 3 interviews, excited about getting hired. And then that application would go up the corporate ladder, and guess what would happen to it? Get squashed.
Yeah.
That's it. And so you do feel like you're walking around with a T-shirt that says, I am a felon. And I'm trying desperately to help people overcome that. Moosey is great about that.
So Moosey is a separate business that contracts with y'all, does work. It's not part of your 501. It's not part of your organization. It's just a company that does a lot of work.
We just partnered with them because they had a heart to see people give a second chance. And we've had such a sweet partnership. And they have actually leased me some space right next to their building. So I got to move all my offices and my classroom and my counseling rooms and our mentors' rooms in this area, and then help the girls go next door and work. Yeah. And I can kind of still keep my watchful eye over things and stuff. So, and they have been burned several times, and I think, oh gosh, this is it. But they have stayed the place. They have stayed the fight. They have believed in their mission. And I can't tell them how I'm excited about. It's the girls' kind of first job, but it gets their feet on the floor, gets them used to working. Have you ever bought this is kind of weird. Y'all probably going to think I'm a weird. But have you ever had an experience or know somebody that's bought a puppy from a puppy mill?
Not a pup mill.
If you've ever bought a puppy from somebody that runs a puppy mill, they're not socialized. I had one time years ago, didn't realize that's what it was. I got me this little puppy, but she was a puppy mill puppy. And she loved all the dogs, but she never loved me. She never wanted anything to do with me because she didn't know who I was. And prisoners sometimes feel like a puppy mill puppy. They don't feel like they can be loved by anybody or respected by anybody. And they're real hesitant to get their hopes up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
that's a mindset that I'm trying to overcome. So as my church is finally stumbling together, every church I have, and I have about 15 partner churches now, there's a remnant in that church that God reaches out and says, come help. God puts it on their heart. And I have got some of the most faithful, giving volunteers ever. There's not a holiday that doesn't go by. This Christmas, I had 40 ladies. They were, we call it adopted out. A volunteer buys $150 worth of presents with a $50 gift card involved. And we have Christmas for the girls.
Wow.
Now that took how many people? That took 40 people
Yeah.
A lot of
at
volunteers.
5 presents apiece. You should have seen our campus.
Yeah.
It was full of joy and love. And it wasn't just about the presents. It was about that somebody loved somebody enough that don't even know me to show me the love of Christ with his present.
Yeah.
Now that's volunteers. That's making a difference in somebody's life. And I've had girls that say, I've never had this. Valentine's, we have volunteers give Valentine cards. And I'll always have a girl that says, this is my first Valentine card. Or an Easter basket. Most of our ladies have come from such broken homes. Then a lot of our ladies have come from very good homes. Because, you know, addiction's not a respecter of any person. Doesn't matter who you are, what you've been from, you can fail. Yeah. Does that answer your question? I think I may have chased a rabbit there, but
I think so. I know you see a lot of people, different types of people coming into McCoy House.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Alcoholism and drug addiction doesn't care.
No, it doesn't. We call it the equal opportunity destroyer. You know, it doesn't care who you are, where you come from, you know, your zip code, your level of education. And the solution is the same, no matter who you are.
don't you think our state, you know, this is a big thing for me. We pour a lot of money in the prison systems. But what if the state allocated funds into treatment centers that were year-long treatment centers? Not 30 days.
30 days, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd see a lot more success.
Yes, you wouldn't have, because they don't get sober in prison. I'll tell you that right now. They do not. They're not sober minded. You think if you punish somebody enough, they won't go back, but that's just not true.
Sure.
Now they don't leave there thinking I'm gonna go back. Sure. They leave there thinking I'll never go back, but they do because it's not about that. Yeah. I watched a documentary one time, y'all, and it was a man that had been on heroin really, really bad. And he was in there for a long time, and they put him in a study. And he had to be clean, completely off drugs, and they made sure he was. And they did an MRI of his brain to see where it was when he got on, was there, been on heroin. And they did it every week for 2 years. And it took a solid 2 years for that man's brain to return to a normal pathway brain.
Don't doubt that at all.
2 years. And so it's not a quick fix. Mm-hmm. It's a long term. And I fought for 4 months. And I am a partner with MDOC. And so the parole officers encourage them strongly to stay there 4 months. And somebody said, Miss Vicki, you cannot heal me in 4 months. I said, you are absolutely right. I cannot undo your whole life in 4 months. But my prayer is that I can give you the tools to use as you go forward so you can repair your life. Mm-hmm. And that's what we try to do.
What happens after the 4 months? You had mentioned independent living. So are there phases? What does that support look like? So
sometimes they go home, and we try to prepare them for that. We try to give them their needs, physical needs, and medical stuff that we can do. And we work within the system to make sure they get to where they're supposed to go. We try to teach them how important it is to report. Don't get off, doing things you shouldn't do. And So we try to work with them that way. Then the girls that say they want to stay. Now I have 2 aftercare houses. So in the aftercare house, you can come in and you're working, you have a job, you have a phone. We have internet there with a computer. They can have their own iPads or laptops. But we still keep a watchful eye. Like you can't come and go like you want to. We have weekend passes. We put them back out there, but at a much slower pace. And then if I see somebody getting in trouble, I kind of reel them back in a little bit. And I've had girls go home and come back even before they were supposed to be there, and they'd say, "I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this." So they kind of realize. So in aftercare, we keep very watchful eyes. They still share rooms and share living space. They still go to church. They still go to meetings. They still do some things. In the independent, everybody has their own bedroom, so they pay rent. They pay their share of utilities, like a sober living house, I guess. And I don't put as much watchful eye on them, but I still am checking on them. But they kind of come and go like they want to. They leave, they go out of town. They're really in charge of their life until I see that they're struggling. And if I see they're struggling, then we have a conversation, and either they kind of submit to coming back under some accountability, or sometimes they leave. But it's just having that. I'm almost like a sponsor, just keeping watchful eyes on those. I've got a girl that's been with me. She came to live at Jenny and Brett's house when I first opened it up, January of 22. She's still there. And we were having a disagreement about something. I said, "Well, maybe you're just tired of living in this house and you need to move on, She looked and fear just filled her face. She said, "Miss Vicki, I will never leave here. This is the only time I have not been on heroin. This is my safe place." She said, I'm not wanting to leave here. And I felt so bad. And I understood. And I said, "Well, you don't have to leave here, And that helps me understand. She knows her limits. She knows what she can do and can't do. And she knows she's safe there. And people ask me all the time, "Well, when's their time up?" I said, "It doesn't ever have to be up as long as God helps me provide for these homes. I'll keep them forever." Yeah. How can you put a time limit on healing?
Yeah, you can't.
You cannot. Yeah. And these women have to have a safe place to live. And so I've been you're probably going to understand what I'm fixing to say. I've been so frustrated hearing all the money that's being wasted. And I have to beg for every dollar I get because I don't charge these girls anything. We completely take care of them until they get to the independent houses. They put in a little money for transportation, and they buy their food after they get into the sober living. But I take care of them. I'm the real deal. I'm not getting this fat, huge salary. Nobody else is, And it's like the state and people need to recognize people like us that are doing the work, doing the job. And it is frustrating trying to raise funds to do the right thing in the state, And I am open for anybody that can help me with that. Because it's a struggle.
Yeah, well, actually, so my wife and I run some sober living homes, and we were trying to do business with MDOC, and they've got a 4-year window where they allow and open up contracts. I mean, like, if you're not in fact, I saw, did a little bit of research, saw y'all just reinitiated a contract, but that's a 4-year run. There's only 3 other places in the state that even have contracts, and they're not even open to talking about it anymore, looking at it anymore for another 4 years.
Right.
And then we don't even really want MDOC money. We just want to be put on a list and say we're here if they want to come. They didn't even want to hear that. Like it's really insane how closed-minded, closed off, just kind of back of the house it is, just to even, we know people need our services, but
Right.
they're not even, we weren't even trying to get on a contract to get paid. We were just trying to say, hey, we're available.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even want to talk about that, which is really sad.
Well, it's a difficult thing to navigate. I'll tell you a funny story. I don't know how much time we got.
We got 20 minutes. We're good.
Do y'all remember when Commissioner Epps fell from grace?
Oh, yeah.
Y'all remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I met Steve Pickett somewhere along that line, and he introduced me to Commissioner Epps because he wanted me to apply for contract housing. And I met with him, and he kind of laughed at me, and he said, well, we're going to pray for you, and you seem to be doing a good job, but, you know, if it's money you need, we're in the red in the state, you know, so there's nothing else to give.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 months later, he gets arrested
Yeah.
for
Siphoning off
embezzling
money, yeah.
money. And I thought, well, no wonder y'all ain't got no money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wasn't long after that I was able to get my first contract.
Yeah.
Commissioner Guhertz, deputy commissioner, she was there then. She had such a heart for reentry. You know, reentry is difficult, and it depends on the state leaders and what they put into reentry. Reentry, in my book, should be so much bigger.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not much help to us. And I think being in a home like ours should benefit way keeping somebody in prison over a possession charge. Because they pay like, I don't know, $70, $80 a day. And if you looked at the contract, you know what we get.
How much?
So now it helps. And
Yeah. But that's just a portion of what y'all got to do. You still got to
Yeah.
raise money. You still got a contract.
That's like
with,
probably a third of my funding comes from that. Any third is you don't want to lose, but it is difficult. But even just like I used to get some help, but now FEMA's broke. I used to get some grants from FEMA, but now it's broke. There's no money coming from the state for that. And the state should be doing more to help reentry. But I'm not a good politician, and I'm not good at understanding a lot of that. I wish I had somebody alongside of me that did. But if they would put more emphasis into what we do after people get out of prison. I've been keeping an Excel sheet since 2015. I didn't do so good before then. That I can demonstrate to you. I keep up with when they came, when they left, how long they stayed, and who went back to prison. And Crossroads has about a 14% recidivism rate.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is-
Considered the statewide, what, 80, 90?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because they don't do the work. Because it's hard to make these girls sit down for 4 months.
Sure.
Or 3 years or whatever, but
Mhm.
it's that mindset that's not good. And if you don't set them down for a little while until they get their head wrapped around good decisions, they'll go back to something they don't need to be going back to. So it's nothing really that I'm doing other than giving them a safe place and a safe place to learn. Because even though they teach a lot of things in the prison, I do a lot of the same things they do. You're hearing different. You're learning different. You're so guarded, it's hard for you to be vulnerable enough to hear things when you're incarcerated. So when you're at Crossroads or McCoy House, you can sit and listen and cry if you need to cry. You ain't going to cry in prison. But if they need a safe place for somebody to listen to them and for their hurt to come out, I think that makes a difference. And gently ease them in a job and help them navigate through that job. It's so rewarding to me to see. There's a girl in one of my independent housings. She works at Kiefer's. And she has saved her money, paid her fines, got her a car, moved to independent, and is fixing to enroll in CNA's. What do you call that when you drive the trucks?
Oh, CDL.
CDL. She's fixing to go to CDL, get her license. That's cool. You know, and there were several points she wanted to leave. You know, somebody came along, got her distracted, and she stayed the course. And she's done the job. They can't get distracted. You're talking about my commitment. They've got to have a commitment. They can't get distracted by anything, or else they'll lose it, you know.
Well, it's more difficult. It's deeper than just removing the drugs and alcohol. I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, the drugs and the alcohol were the solution.
Yeah.
That is the solution. It's not that I'm a bad person or
no.
This is what helps me to numb the pain that's inside of me. So what process, what's your go-to process for deprogramming the mind and allowing people to recognize that, no, you're not a bad person. You have found a solution for you that works until it doesn't. But it does work. That is why we use it, is because it works and it makes us feel better. Yeah. So what do you do when you're faced with that big wall that, you know, somebody they're just not getting it because they keep on going back to that solution. Right. What do you do? What is your process with that?
Just, I think, living life with them. Like, a lot of times like I was telling you, 2 of our ladies lost their rights to their children. Well, being with me, they had to do it sober. And they realized they could do it sober. Somebody just lost their mama. She said, if I was at home, I'd be high as a kite right now. But she's having to do it sober. Getting a job, they're having to do it sober. They're learning that they can live life. Christmas. Miss Vicki, I hadn't been sober in Christmas, and I couldn't tell you when. Holidays are hard for addicts. But, you know, I made it, and I'm happy, and I'm okay. You know, they're learning in their mind that their mindset is wrong, and I can do this. I don't have to have drugs to heal my pain. Then you start dealing with them about their trauma. What's hurting you? What's bothering you? God is what has to heal you, and you have to forgive yourself. So it's just working through those day-by-day conversations with these ladies. Sometimes my best counseling is when I go pick somebody up and take them somewhere. We have the best conversations in my car. And that's what the volunteers do, too. Yeah. What's going on? How are you doing? Well, my son won't have anything to do with me. And we just talk about, well, why is that? You know, and I think that's what addicts, that's why it takes a year, not only to get your mind and body sober, but for you to learn that you can do life without, and that pain is not going to kill you. You are not going to die. You can survive emotional pain from anything that you're going through. Y'all know my son. He has a story to tell. He was an addict for 20 years. He got sober 4 years ago.
Congrats.
I gave up on him. I'll be honest. I'd had it. And he was in treatment. I'd finally told the Lord, if all he was ever going to be was an addict here, take him home. I knew he was a Christian. And I said, I'd rather him be home with you than live here on earth like this. And he was at a treatment center and got run over by a car. And I was at UMC, and I went in the restroom. I kneeled down in that dirty bathroom. And I spoke to him. I'd been mad. And I said, God, I'm not going to ask you not to take him. I just want to tell him I love him. And I got to do that, and he survived. I don't know how. And that's his story to tell because it's a long one. But something snapped in him, just snapped. And I can't tell you what it was, but he got himself sober. He's been sober 4 years now. He goes to Broadmoor. He doesn't miss a Sunday. He knows what he has to do to keep himself sober. And that's what the girls have to do. They have to know what they have to do to keep themselves sober. They have to recognize the triggers in their life that's going to make them to want to go back to numbing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because first thing that happens when you sober up is what?
Everything comes back.
All the shame just hits you. Everything you've destroyed hits you. You know, it's like seeing, when I look at the news and you see where a tornado just left Tyler down, that's how I see my girls' lives. It's complete devastation. Which do you go pick up first? What do you go look for first? One of my girls lost their trailer in that. She sent me pictures of her trailer and everything just scattered. And she said, Miss, I don't know what to do first. I don't know what to pick up first. I don't know what to put together first. You just don't even know where to start. And I think that's what helps us at Crossroads and other places is people help you navigate where to start to put your life back together. Because it's not going to happen in a day or a week. You're going to turn around like Julie and say, 7, 8 years, I'm still here. I'm still doing the right thing. When Georgia got sent back to prison, I thought, oh, Lord, help her, protect her. But she knew what she had to do to maintain her sobriety. She enrolled in every class they had. You know, she focused on helping people. She knew what she had to do. That girl been on drugs her entire life. What happened in her? Grief, oh, my gosh, the grief that young lady went through. She lost her daughter, her brother, you know, her husband at such a young age. Something snapped in her. Something said, you can do this. Then you pursue it.
So, okay. Thank you for that. So this question may ruffle some feathers. All right. So, one of the things that I love about the 12-step program that I'm a part of is there is not a requirement to believe in your God in order to get help. No requirement. You don't believe in anything. You're pissed off at God. Fine. The last thing you ever want to do is have a relationship with God after what you perceive as this deadly, toxic experience that you had with God. That's all right. Welcome in. We love you. We're going to give you a hug. You don't have to believe in anything. Nothing. You want to believe your higher power is the doorknob? That's okay. That's okay. And that's what I love about my 12-step program is there is not that requirement to believe in what you believe in, what you believe in, what you believe in. That doesn't exist. And one of the things that I get caught up on with faith-based is in order to get help, you have to believe in this. In order to get healthy, you have to believe in what I believe in. So how do you treat somebody that comes in where their heart is completely blackened and blocked off from God? What do you tell those people to give them a little bit of peace that they're not bad people and there is hope? What do you do when someone like that comes in front of you?
Well, it's so funny because the girl I just told you about that's been with me for 3 years that was a horrible heroin addict, she does not believe like I believe. I've had her with me for 3 years. We've had many conversations. And she said, Miss Vicki, I just don't believe like you believe. I said, well, I'm going to keep praying for you. And I said, but the main thing is that we keep in relationship so that you can stay sober. So I don't show her no difference in keeping her safe and giving her the tools she needs to stay safe as I do the person that believes like I do. Because I believe that the God that I serve gives me the ability to heal in my body. You know, how it heals. He's already created that avenue for healing. Now, I believe that things can go better with the Holy Spirit, but I'm sure not going to tell somebody they can't get help if they don't have my Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I'm not. I believe God prepared a healing from them. My girl, Regina, is an exact example of that. She does not believe in Christ. But I didn't turn her away, and I didn't make her leave my house. You know, she is going to church every Sunday. She obtains what she wants out of it, but the main thing I want for her is to maintain her healing and her sobriety, because she'll die if she doesn't.
Right.
If she left my house, she's scared that she would die. She knows she would die. But I am a Christian. Christ is my Savior. He is my substance. He is my help. But there are people that get sober all the time that don't believe like I believe. And I sure won't tell them that it's not real. How could I? So I understand what you're saying.
And that's it's not a commentary on how I feel about the situation, but I've been in and out of the rooms of 12-step rooms since I was 17 years old, and I'm almost 41 years old now. So in those years, I've had a lot of experience with people that are like, F you, God. Like, I don't want anything to do with it. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, something interesting that I found is a lot of times, not all the time, those people that are unable to kind of find their higher power, whether it be God or something bigger than themselves, a lot of times those people struggle with a lot of things that people that have found their higher power, their God, don't struggle with. So the way that I see it, I had walked away from God, but God brought me to the 12-step rooms, and the 12-step rooms brought me back to God. So I love your answer to that, and I think that's absolutely beautiful, because we got to meet people where they're at, right? Everybody's
right
not
there.
Right.
When there's no question on my application. I do ask them what religion they are, just purely because I need to know what I'm dealing with. But you don't have to be a Christian to come to Crossroads. That's nowhere in my...
I think that's important to say again.
Yes, you just don't, because God's called me to the broken. God, in Matthew 25, he's called me to feed the poor, to visit the people in prison. He didn't give me any guidelines to say, well, you take the Good Samaritan, the guy that's laying in the ditch. He didn't ask him if he was a Christian. He just saw a man that needed help. And I think about, and I think it's Psalms where it says, it's the kindness of God that leads to salvation. So that's what I want to show these people, is kindness and love and provision. I want to help them in their tornado. I want to help them with their lives just flattened. I want them to see that there is a God through me, the volunteers that come in and just love them right where they're at. And I've had some knuckleheads, but I still love them. I love them right where they're at, and try to help show them how they can live their life with our volunteers and everything. I don't back up from being a Christian.
Nor should you. Absolutely not.
God put my life together. I was raised with a very abusive father. I've been molested. I've had no self-esteem. But God picked me up and saved my heart and healed my heart. And unfortunately, my mother couldn't embrace that healing. But I want them to know there's a healing. There is a healing. And you talk about ruffle some feathers, I'll probably ruffle some, but people find healing without God sometimes. But I know the author of healing is God.
Right.
They don't recognize it. My friend Regina doesn't recognize it. She has some strange beliefs, but I love her. I love her because she's still God's daughter.
Right.
I love her because he put her in my life, and I'm going to continue to help her, regardless of whether she thinks or believes like I do. That's evident that I do that all the time.
Absolutely. Well, we could go on and on and on. I think we could sit here with Vicki for another 4 hours and pull a Joe Rogan, but unfortunately we don't have other clients coming in. We can't do that. But in the spirit of Drew's famous 2 questions at the end of every Recovery Lab podcast. We're going to do it a little bit different today. So what do you do poorly in your daily faith walk?
For me, on a personal level, take care of myself.
Okay.
I don't take care of myself.
Okay.
I'm always giving out. Sometimes I don't stop and take care of me in the spirit and physically and every other way. And that's always been my problem. I don't take care of myself.
Beautiful. What do you do well in your daily faith walk?
Love. I truly just love people around me. I hugged a girl today, and she said, Miss Vicki, I wait for your hug every Sunday sometimes. I've always prayed that my hands would be his hands, and that when I wrap my arms around these girls and I give big mama hugs, they call them, I want them to feel Christ and not me. I want them to feel that love. I'm mercy to a fault, but I'd rather give too much mercy than too much judgment.
Boy, what a wonderful place to stop right there. All right, so you want to take us out, or you want me to take us out? What do you want?
Whatever.
All right, so look, the best possible way, let me turn my levels down a little bit. The best possible way that you can support us and help us to continue what we do here at the Recovery Lab, one of the ways is to share this episode, comment on this episode, engage with us. We don't need a whole lot in order to keep doing this, but every time that someone likes and shares and supports us in some way, it enables us to do one more episode. So please support us. We love being able to talk with people in and around recovery. And so just please help us to continue to do that. Ms. Vicki, thank you so much for joining us today. Jordan, what an honor to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, like and share, and we will see you next week on the Recovery Lab.